Today's lesson is on how do we simplify exponents. Last lesson we learned the beginning of exponents. Now we're going to take our exponent rules and we're going to extend them a little bit farther. We're going to be learning about what to do with negative exponents. So problem 1, write an equivalent expression for 7 to the third over 7 to the 8th. Take a second to copy down the question. Now when we're solving this, we're still going to use our previous exponent rules. Since I'm dividing and my bases are the same, I can keep my base of 7. And I can subtract my exponents. I can subtract the numerator exponent minus the denominator. So I have 7 over 7 to the 3 minus 8 power. When I simplify that, the 7 stays. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. So I have 7 to the negative 5th power. Now we never want to have an expression with a negative exponent. So whenever we get a negative exponent, we need to turn it into a positive exponent. To turn a negative exponent into a positive exponent, we are going to have to move it from the numerator to the denominator, or from the denominator to the numerator. Since this is not a fraction, I'm going to turn it into a fraction and put 7 to the negative 5th power over 1. Now, since I have 7 to the negative 5th power in the numerator, I'm going to take that whole expression and I'm going to move it to my denominator. When I move that expression to my denominator, the 1 stays and I'm multiplying it by 7. Now since I moved it, it becomes a positive exponent. And I cannot just leave my numerator blank, so anytime it's blank, I'm going to replace it with a 1. So I have 1 over 1 times 7 to the 5th power. Now since multiplying by this 1 does not change anything, I can just get rid of it. So I have 1 over 7 to the 5th power. So this is the expression written with a positive exponent. Problem 2. Write an expression using positive exponents. 2 to the negative 3rd power. Take a second to copy down the question. Now, this is the same thing. I have 2 to the negative 3rd power. I do not want a negative exponent, so I have to turn this into a fraction. So it's 2 to the negative 3rd power over 1. Now I take the whole expression with the negative exponent, and since it's in the numerator, I'm going to move it to the denominator. So I have 1 times 2 to the 3rd power. And my exponent has become positive because I moved it from the numerator to the denominator. And I can't just leave my numerator empty, so I'm going to replace it with a 1. Since I have 1 times 2 to the 3rd power, the 1 will not change anything, so I do not have to write it. So this could just be 2 to the 3rd power in the denominator, and I keep my 1 in my numerator. And again, since it says to write it using positive exponents, I'm going to keep this as 2 to the 3rd power and not simplify it. Problem 3. Write an expression using positive exponents. 1 over 3 to the negative 7th power. Take a second to copy down the question. Now this problem is a little different than the previous ones. In the previous ones, I had my negative exponent in my numerator, and I had to move it to my denominator. This process is the same. Since I have my negative exponent in the denominator, I can move it to the opposite, which is the numerator, and make the exponent positive. So this will be 1 times 3 to the 7th power. Since I moved it to the numerator, my exponent would become positive. And I don't want to leave my denominator blank, so I'm going to replace it with a 1. Again, since I have 1 times this expression, the 1 isn't going to change anything. So I just write it as 3 to the 7th power over 1. And anytime you have a fraction over 1, you can just get rid of the fraction. This could just become 3 to the 7th power. And again, I had to write this using positive exponents, so I just keep it as 3 to the 7th power. I do not need to change anything. And problem 4. Simplify the following expression, 4 to the 0 power. Take a second to copy down the question. 4 to the 0 power, any number or any expression raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. So 4 to the 0 power is 1. If I had x to the 0 power, x to the 0 power would just be 1. If I had x, y together raised to the 0 power, it would still be equal to 1. If I had an expression like 6x raised to the 0 power, since this is not in parentheses, it's only x raised to the 0 power. So x raised to the 0 power would be 1. So this would be equal to 6 times 1, and then you just simplify. 6 times 1 would be 6. So any expression raised to the 0 power is 1. Now to do a quick review of the lesson that we just learned. When we're working with exponents, we are never going to leave an answer with negative exponents. We always want to have positive exponents. So no matter what, we are not going to have negative exponents. If you have a term with a negative exponent in the denominator, we are going to move it to the numerator to make a positive exponent. Similarly, if you have a term with a negative exponent in the numerator, we're going to move it to the denominator to make a positive exponent. And lastly, any number or term or variable or expression to the 0 power equals 1. In every case, no matter what it is, anything raised to the 0 power will be equal to 1. Now, take a second to answer these 3 questions and submit your answer on our flip grid.